Uh, what I'd like to do is to introduce you as today's speaker, and for us to start the session. So, Colonel Inderjeet Singh, it's a pleasure for me to introduce you as our speaker today. I know you've done a very wide-ranging work in cybersecurity, and in speech, and in particular, we're very interested to hear about the work you've done in speech today. And we would request you, of course, that you continue to be associated with us and come and talk to us as many times as time would allow you to. Because there's so much you have wealth of information you have to share with us. But rather than me continuing to talk, I think everybody is here to listen to you. So I shall hand over to you, sir. And again, thank you for taking the time.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's a pleasure. So I'll just share my screen, and so I'll stop my video. I'll share my screen. That's what. Yeah. Can you see me now? Can you see the screen, everyone?
Yes.
Yeah, wonderful. So good morning, everyone, and it's really a pleasure to be with you, all of you, today. And on a Saturday, and talking of very interesting technology, when we look at it, and why I said this is an interesting technology, though you may say it's a voice biometrics, and maybe the same thing what we've been talking all these years. But the way it has been, come across, and we are trying to implement across the different scenarios is very interesting. And to give you a background about myself, thank you, Sarabjot, for hosting me here, and I really am, from the bottom of the heart, grateful to you. And it's really nice with all of you who are real think tanks and the wonderful work what you're doing. So, a word about me: I've been the alumni of IIT Kharagpur, and then the Symbiosis Institute of Management, and then also I was in Indian Army for 25 years, where I was handling the cyber, of course, for a long time, and cyber warfare and other stuff, which was quite interesting, and cyber intelligence. And then I migrated, and I moved to the corporate ladder, and I've been here now. So I had the cyber in Vara technology, and I try to bring in all the niche technologies into India. And one of the technologies which I'm trying to talk to you is about the voice biometrics. And this is a technology which is very much needed today when we are going through COVID, and I will link it to the COVID-19, and I hope everybody is safe and sound, all of you, all your families. And how voice biometrics plays a role into your daily lives in times to come, how it's going to be, kind of changing the way you do the business. When I say business, is that the way you make payments, the way you authenticate yourself, the way you, in times to come, get the printout of your airport tickets, right? So that's where we really are looking in for, this technology to work up. And this is technology which has been there for quite some time. People have been working on it, and the technology has been evolving over a period of time. The accuracy rates have gone up very high, and I'll show you as to how the accuracies have changed over a period of time, and the other biometric systems also, which are there. So during the course of my talk today, what I'm going to do is, I'll give you a perspective about the biometric, technologies which are there, and most of it we know, but definitely I will try to, make it look a bit better, to sound a bit more interesting, and then I'll, graduate onto the voice biometric and how it's being used, what are the use cases, and some bit of the technology part of it. And though I'm not getting into the algorithms, if anybody's interested, I can take the algorithms part offline also, because we have the development team which keeps working on it, and definitely it will be an interest to, in fact, offline, online, both, right? Yeah. So what is happening is today, the authentication is really a very frustrating thing which we are seeing today. And most of the people are kind of frustrated. You're being told to change your password every 15 days, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. or your PIN you need to change, how many times you will remember your passwords, right? And if you're feeling in that authentication, really feel frustrated as to what happened, why I'm not remembering it, why the things are not happening properly, and they're unable to access the important information at least once due to the failed authentication. And everybody of you, I'm very sure, you must have gone through that kind of trauma, I will say, that when you forgot some authentication passwords, and it was really very much so important for you to do that transaction, right? And one of the studies which was carried out internationally, they said, when they were trying to work on to tell about the voice biometric, they said voice biometric may be a next level of the biometrics, which is uh, interesting. They would definitely go in for if it is being implemented, and we are seeing that implementation change, which is happening altogether. So, some of the popular biometrics which are available, which we are knowing it, fingerprint, we all know Aadhaar, that's the most commonly spoken about for the fingerprint. Your iris, again, Aadhaar has been, one of the key databases in India. Palm biometry is another one. Your finger vein is another technology which is quite interesting. Then now over a period of time, we have been all talking about the facial recognition, right? And now when we talk of the facial recognition, we also talk of the voice biometrics, right? And when we talk of any technology or of whatever we have seen, I'm talking, never it is that, a single technology is being used. So it's a mix and match of two technologies to authenticate a person, right? So whether it's a fingerprint and iris, it's a finger vein and the iris, or facial recognition and the voice recognition. So those are the kind of combinations really do work out. And when you have these kind of biometric systems which are there, the biometric primarily it performs the analysis of the physical signs or the behavioral traits of a person, right? And these are the two kind of things. One is a behavioral system, which are based on dynamic methods of identification, or you have a psychological system which are based on the statistical method of identification. And what fall in the bucket of the behavioral system? They are the voice recognition, your signature dynamics, right? That's the speed of pen, the way you move it, the acceleration, the pressure, the inclination, and the keystroke dynamics, what you use. These are all forming in the part of the behavioral system, right? And the other part is a psychological system. Psychological system are, more of biological, and they mainly consist of the fingerprints, the shape of your hand, the palm, vein pattern, your eye, that's the iris and the retina, and the shape of the face for morphological elements, right? And also we talk of the, when we try to authenticate a person, we go much deeper. We talk of DNA, blood, saliva, urine, and other things, right? So in the behavioral system, it is now gaining more momentum if you're looking at it. And when we talk of the psychological measurements, they are usually offering up benefits of remaining more stable throughout the life of an individual. So psychological systems don't change much, right? Behavioral systems are like, changing time to time, but then how it's going to work up, we're going to discuss that. Right. And when we see the biometrics, they are increasingly being used for security because they are tamper-proof, right? So we've been talking of the passwords earlier. We've been talking of no passwords, passwordless authentication and other stuff. Uh, but the biometrics definitely has more advantage, and it's got more benefits to it, right? And it gives you accuracy. It gives you the guarantee of your, when you're authenticating yourself. So in contrast, when you have the passwords, you have the kind of pins which are there. Uh, in case they're forgotten or they're stolen or forged, it's a big problem. Whereas in case of your biometrics, they're very difficult to hack. It takes more time for hacking, than hacking a password. Okay. So because password, you can have a brute force method to crack it, and you can apply different applications to crack it. Whereas the biometric system, say for example, your facial recognition system, if you need to really hack it, think of it the kind of difficulty which you're going to have. Here you may be asking, the voice can be it can be a synthetic voice, it can be copied by anyone. But then when I cover up my later part of the talk, I'll tell you it's not that easy to really simulate the similar kind of voice which I'm trying to talk. But then there are these ways and means to identify catches. And it's difficult to attempt hacking without being noticed. So you really have to get into the database. So unlike passwords, you change the password without being noticed, right? And creating the fake ID requires a larger amount of user data. Okay. Though what we are seeing is that biometric system is not much standardized, so there are much which is to be done on those aspects of it. When we compare different, biometric systems, I've tried to, kind of evaluate each one of them, how it works, what are the goods and bads about each one. And on the horizontal scale, I've tried to write all the systems. I've tried to put it 4 systems which are there: the facial, iris, fingerprint, and the voice. And when we talk about the accuracy part of it, right? Uh, the device which are required, interference, attack precautions which we will need to take care of, and the verification time. So if you see through, the facial recognition is quite promising at this point in time, where we say accuracy is pretty high, but you require a camera. Interference is the lighting. It may be a bad lighting, or your face is covered. And if you're using a mask right now, if you're covering more than 60% of your face, those 60, 70 points which are there on your face is very difficult to, identify. So those kind of challenges are being faced. Then you have hair, your moving, your age, and other stuff which is there. So those are the kind of interferences which do happen. Attack precautions are average because I told you that you really have to access the database, of the facial recognition to, hack into it and do some bigger manipulation of the database. And the verification time is 3 seconds. The people are trying to improve upon the verification time. They are getting in for the accuracy also, much higher accuracy of almost 95%, the FFR, or the FAR. Similarly, on the iris scan, which has been there for quite some time with us, and again, the accuracy has been high because we were not able to crack through it, but you require a camera. Again, the interference are there, and attack precautions are very high. Then you do require less than 5 seconds to generally, do the verification. And then what we know is the fingerprint, but in the case of fingerprint, accuracy is higher, but you require a scanner, that reads to the fingerprint, architecture. And then there are a lot of interferences which are there, maybe a dryness, age, deep injury, and dirt, and that's always a challenge. And attack precautions are higher, and less than 3 seconds is quite a faster, methodology of doing the biometric. And the one which is there is the biometric, the voice biometric. Again, the accuracy is higher. The people are trying to make it more accurate, and AI is playing a and the DNN is really playing a major role in this particular aspect of it. The interferences can be the noise, the background noise, or the cold, which people may catch up. And attack precautions are average, and verification time is around 5 seconds. So when we see all this, biometrics which are there, any single biometric or the unimodal biometric cannot be secure enough. So we cannot go in for a single biometric and say that we are secure. So the best thing is to use the multimodal biometrics, right, to avoid the deliberate hacking. So it gives you a lot of kind of chances that anybody trying to hack into one cannot get into the other one. So and the accuracy also pretty good. If you're having, say for example here, like in case of Aadhaar, what you have is iris and the fingerprint which is there with us, 2 of them. And the other part, what we are talking is the facial recognition now, very prominent. and the voice biometrics. Okay, because the fingerprint somehow, because of the COVID, is no more in discussion, because you will try to not use your finger on any of the surface of the scanner, right? So where are we seeing all this biometrics? And you may all be aware of the use cases of the biometric. Airport security is the one which we see today. Everyone we are seeing the facial recognition taking up a big lead. There, in fact, the facial recognition along with the voice biometric. I'll tell you how it can work. You can authenticate yourself right from the entry point where you can print the boarding pass to the all the gates where you're passing through, even wherever you're going to the VIP launch. All the accesses can be given to you, right? And this kind of biometric gives you a kind of a very free flow of movement till the boarding gate, right? And where you can authenticate yourself, very actively and very smartly. So those use cases really are of real benefit. Then we are seeing it time and attendance. What we are seeing, access controls cards which are there, and people are really wary of using the access control cards today because of the COVID and the biometric finger biometric. So most of the offices, if you're gone today back to the offices, all the biometric machines, they put all the tapes on it so that that is not being used anymore, right? Then the law enforcement, of course, uses all the facial recognition, your the fingerprint system, your iris, quite a bit. And in India also we seeing it. The NCRB has come up with a bigger project of the facial recognition, and they wanting to have all the database of all the criminals and the inmates with their fingerprint and the DNA and the kind of the facial recognition also. Then you have the access control. That's pretty common. You have all the stadiums, the cricket stadiums and the football stadiums, where if you have the access control system, the facial and maybe the voice, the facial recognition, of course, is one of the best option, where you just show your face, and within 6 seconds, if you're okay, it will check on the database and give you the indication that go ahead. Okay, this is without touching anything, without looking at anything, or putting your finger on any of the stuff. So that is a pretty nice use case of the facial recognition. Then is the banking. Now, when you talk about the banking, so we have been seeing, whenever we go to the call center, we have a chance of the identity theft. Customers now looking for the banks with biometric authentication. So what they're trying to do is, you would have seen in India now, what we're trying to do is the eKYC. We're trying to have a video call and the video recognition system, and something more which the other banks internationally they have gone in. They have gone in for the voice biometric. To name a couple of them is the Citibank, the HSBC, even Indian ICICI. They tied up not the full implementation of voice biometric. They tied up with the Alexa, right, for giving you the details of your bank if you're being authenticated by your voice. So that is there. Then some welfare delivery by the government. Now, what is happening is that everybody's got a Aadhaar card, and we don't have a national ration cards, right? How do we really authenticate a person that he's got the ration, like what we're seeing in COVID situation? It's a bigger problem to authenticate those people, right? So had we got the facial recognition database or the voice biometric database, right? So it would have been much easier to authenticate those people using those biometric systems. Something more. So most of the countries do have their voter registrations based on the voice biometric or the facial recognition, and also the pensions. Like most of the elders who are there, they cannot go to the bank, and every year on 1st of November they really have to struggle to reach to the bank to sign that document they are alive, right? So that's a very tedious process even for the banks and the people. And what happens if the elderly guy dies in the month of December itself? So how do you really authenticate? So he will keep getting the pension for next 1 year without even the bank or the government even knowing it. So if they have not informed it. So if we have a combination of voice biometrics, right? That will give a real big push to this kind of system. So while we are talking of all these use cases, it's not one shoe fit all model. It's kind of a combination of different biometrics which we have to use them, right? And then we also do have for the military, we for the enemy or ally identification, we use it. Your healthcare is now picking up, right? When we talk of the telemedicine, we're trying to authenticate people. So facial recognition and the voice recognition also plays a major role for them, right? Your commercial applications which are there. So in effect, there are so many applications which are come up, and on the biometrics which I'm trying to talk, always think that you're going to be using in a combination. No single biometric system is like the foolproof, which I've already told you. And why we say it's a the model is not the best model. It's a multimodal model which combines several biometric sources to increase security and the equity, right? And usually you require two biometric credentials for identification, such as face and fingerprint instead of one, or face and voice. Now we're talking of voice. And they can overcome the limitations commonly encountered in a unimodal model, right? And the use of several biometric features in combination are the best option, and they reduce the error rate considerably, right? So the big question, you will say that can the biometric be faked? And the answer is yes, right? We've been seeing all these years with the kind of cameras which have come up. They were able to have that. There was a Galaxy S10 camera with a ultra fingerprint sensor, right? And it was able to click the photographs of your hand and simulate those kind of fingerprints, right? And they could do it. Similarly, you had the Apple Face ID, which was cracked using a mask with a 3D printer. Okay, and there have been flaws in the system throughout, and some of the Android devices can be tricked with a photo, including devices from the largest manufacturers such as Samsung, Motorola, Sony, and Huawei. So those are the kind of things. They're there. They can be faked, but the data cannot be lost, right? So you have to be aware of this particular aspect. Faking is one thing. You're trying to cheat the system for some time, but you're not able to take out the data or change the information what you're able to do using cracking your passwords and the PIN, right? So the COVID has brought in a new challenge in the biometric system, and the complete biometric ecosystem has now looking in for something different from what I've been saying. So something which is of concern. So all of the four biometric systems which I spoke of, iris and kind of the fingerprint, are a challenge. Okay, there are no more fingerprints, no more thumb scanning. You can do it, and the way the coronavirus is, I think another 1 to 2 years we are going to be in this new normal, and this fingerprint database, how effective it would be after 2 years, we really don't know, right? And similarly the access cards which are there, right? And why I said the kind of iris and the fingerprint, because for facial recognition you can use it in a normal sense. You can use your normal mobile camera to authenticate you. You can also use a normal mobile phone to authenticate your voice, right? So what we are seeing today, when I'm being saying that we are seeing a new normal and the new biometric system is going to be in place. So there was a study which was being done very recently, and they said the facial recognition market is going to really grow very high to almost 15.1 billion, right? And facial and the voice biometric will reset a new normal, as we go forward with the COVID thing, right? And these are going to be redefined, redesigned. So the NEST, NIST, they have come up with the standards in 2016 and 18, and they have been saying that while we talk of the multi-factor authentication, I have not touched upon the point of multi-factor authentication, but we can talk of it. So they said the SMS-based two-factor authentication is not secure and should be done away with. So if that be the situation, you're being left with uh, only the biometrics. That's a combination of any of the unimodals which I spoke of. And this is how the overall market which looks for the voice biometric and the speech recognition. So when we were there in 2018 or 20, the market started to get on to 6.9 billion. And what we are seeing, the voice biometric market in 2026 is 28.3 billion. So it's a huge market potential. So we are just sitting in very nascent stage of the biometric when it comes to the overall market size. So it's a huge potential. The people who are really working in this area of AI and deep learning neural networks. So this is a potential area where they can develop the biometric system, because most of the effort which I've seen by a lot of the peer groups, it was for the facial recognition for the last couple of years now. But definitely in India, I have not seen much of traction as regards the voice biometric is concerned. But then this is the area which can be worked upon, and one has to really think of. And when it comes to the applications, these are the kind of applications what we see. Whether it's your healthcare, whether it's automotive, whether it's government, your retail, e-commerce system, your travel and hospitality, your legal system, right? IT and telecommunication. So every aspect, and also the BFSI, the banking and the finance, which will be a major chunk altogether, right? So those are the areas where this biometric will play a role what we are seeing. So some bit of the disadvantages which I've told about the existing system, I'll just recapitulate those points. So the existing system is about what you know, right? And what you know is the password, that's the OTP, your personal information, name, ID, number, date of birth, your transactional information. So that's what everybody knows, right? And we keep on, either we memorize it or we put it in some piece of paper, but then it's easy to forget. And data can be accessed by others. There are a lot of even in the browsers you find some other applications which say, okay, we'll safeguard your data or your password. But how safe are those? We have to really think of. And what you have today is your security tokens. You have passports. You have the cards, the access cards, right? And you have the RFID. They're again easy to lose, and things can be stolen, right? So it's a kind of situation where comfort versus security is a challenge, and in a situation where we are, being put to test by so many hackers. They try to change your passwords, they try to steal your credit card information, and there are threat intelligence tools which are available. You'll be surprised. I was, seeing that one other threat intelligence tool was able to give the detail of the credit card with its CVV, with the name of the person, with the number of a person, and it also was showing the command and control center where that hacker was operating from. So very precarious situation when it comes to the present system of authentication. So we have to have a kind of a very balanced approach of comfort versus security, and how we are going to do that, we'll be just doing it. And for that, we are telling you about the voice biometric. And the question would be, why voice? We've been talking all these years, from ages we are using voice. And the state of voice today is that 60% of people believe that voice assistant adds to convenience to their daily life, right? And everybody's seeing it. You have Alexa, you have Siri, and Google Assistant. Everybody's using it. And as we are going ahead, all the Google searches, on the mobile phones, people are using uh, kind of voice driven, and voice is quite being used by all these browsers. So the Mozilla also went in for the voice platform altogether. And 72% of people who own smart speakers say the device are part of their daily life, right? And that's the fact. Wherever those Alexas are there, they are part of the daily life. They keep on communicating and talking to Alexa most often. And what we are seeing is that the smart speaker market has grown almost 300% in 2019, and more than 100 million Alexa devices have been sold. Right. So we are seeing a lot of changes happening in the voice segment. And the question which again we like to ask, why voice, right? Uh, but the solution is that voice is so natural to us. It's a intuitive way to communicate. We always do that, and all you need to do is start talking. And once we start talking, we'll try and authenticate. Okay, and voice is unique, and it's a universal password. So you really don't have to remember anything, right? And voice serves as a key to any service in everyday life, right? And it's very secure. And advanced techniques in speaker recognition technology, AI, is providing secure, personalized, and digital self-service to you. And that's what you're seeing today, where you have the Alexa and the Siri. You started getting quite a customized replies to you, right? And voice recognition technology is actually easier than other biometric modalities. Don't need to go anywhere or touch anything to verify your biometric authentication, right? So some bit of confusion which always comes up, and that's what really whenever I give a talk. So there's a question as to the difference between the speech recognition and the voice recognition. So that's a very common question, because we've been talking about the speech recognition for quite some years and the voice recognition for quite some years. So in fact, we had the voice converters way back in 1998 onwards. We've been there, and these are the terms which are being used interchangeably, but however they are both completely different, right? So you have to understand the difference between the voice recognition and the speech recognition. And the purpose of the speech recognition is to arrive at the words that are being spoken. Okay, therefore a speech recognition program strips away your personal information such as accent to detect words, right? And the speech recognition software programs are generally used for dictation, transcribing, and using a computer hands-free. You've been seeing the medical transcription, which was quite in business for quite some time, and also you are seeing automated, customer service. And what you're doing when you're talking about the voice recognition, it aims at recognizing the person speaking the words, right, rather than the words themselves. That's the difference. You were trying to understand the words when you're doing the speech recognition, and you're trying to understand the person behind the words when you're doing the voice recognition. Okay, and the voice recognition, primarily the software which are there, they disregard the language, and the voice recognition also can be called the speaker recognition, right? So that's also a terminology which is being used, and it's unique attribute of each person. It's just like your fingerprint or iris. So it's very unique to each and every one. So it doesn't change altogether. It all depends on your individual respiration, your soft tissue cavity, and specific mouth and jaw movement that produce a voice pattern with a distinctive pitch, dynamic, intensity, and altogether forming an individual voice print. So every person, whenever you're speaking, you have a different voice print that gets created. The way you open your mouth, the way your jaw movement takes place, how your soft tissue move out. And to tell you here itself, there are almost 70 to 100 points when we identify a person in a right, like in a facial recognition, you all know there we talk of almost 60 to 100 points. Is a good software is around 80 to 90. Similarly, when we talk about voice recognition, right, it is about almost 100 points, which we try to identify. That's what we're trying to train the model uh, for the voice recognition. And there are two methods how we do the voice authentication part of it. One is a text independent, and other one is the text dependent, right? And when we talk of the text independent part, so it is like you really don't know what you're going to be talking. So it is authentication is performed by analyzing any speech content delivered by the users. You just like the way I'm talking, it's a text independent kind of model, right? And with the software will try analyze me when I give the voice print analysis and try to make a profile of mine. Whereas in a text dependent, what you try to do is you try to speak a very fixed or randomized or unique passphrase which has been given to you, and you repeat that, and based on what you have been talking, the complete voice print has been created. So these are the two methods which are being used in the market today, in the software today for for the voice biometrics. So one thing which we have to understand is that text independent and language independent verification is done by the voice, and text text dependent verification is done by the static passphrases, and they're all language independent. Okay, and the dynamic passphrases, you can go in for again any Indian language kind of thing, anything which is there. So the other thing which we try to do in the voice biometric is that we try to identify the live detection, so that we try to cancel out all the noise which is there behind, and it acts as a safeguard against someone playing a recording of your voice or masquerade as you. Because most of the time you'll say, okay, what's so great about the voice biometric? I'll record the same voice. But now the voice biometric systems have become pretty, intelligent in that way. They're able to detect the voice, liveness detection. They're able to detect the geolocation as well, right? So those are the kind of things which are there. Then you have the anti-spoofing detection. So it is against all your synthesis, voice which you try to create, or your replay attacks which you want to do it. Then you have the noise cancellation, which is part of the solutions what have been developed, and of course the identification. And like I already told you that when you create a voice ID, right? You looking for 100 identifiers, right? It's not one, two, three. It's almost 100 identifier of your speech, of your with the way you talk, such as the accent, your pronunciation, your cadence, your size of length, your vocal tract, roll of tongue, nasal cavity, which can be used to verify future logins by the customer. So it's not very easy what you sound that it can be cracked, or anybody can spoof into it. So the voice biometric systems first process the voice input to exact statistics that are specific to a speaker. Then it builds a statistical model, which is called a voice print. So that's what it does. Okay. So whenever we have a text independent or text dependent, kind of inputs, onboarding process. So you try to create a voice print. And to verify a new input against the enrolled voice, same process is repeated again and again, and till the time we obtain a matching pattern. Okay, and the accuracy depends on how the neural network really work harder. Okay, and the voice inputs do include the statistics that relate to the way the airflow from the lungs to the mouth moves when the person is talking, and more precisely, how this airflow is affected by the shape of your vocal fry. So these are the kind of things, or details what we are trying to do it when we are getting into the voice biometrics. And the voice biometric system relates closely to the physical characteristics of the speaker's voice track. So whatever we are creating, is very close to the vocal tract of the individual. And they are being designed, the biometric engines are being designed to deal with the variability factor. uh, So if a user has got a cold, or there's some difference in the sound which we are seeing, the advanced biometric engine, which is being developed using the neural networks, will sound just the same. Okay, and there's a lot of AI which gets into it, and the error rate of such systems, they are being brought down to 2% of the SNR of 10 dB or higher. The error rates are very less, and we are seeing a lot of accuracy which is coming up into the systems today. So the advantages, again, to recapitulate as to what are the advantages, what you get: no sensors are required, various solutions are available, they're cheap, they're comfortable, and they're natural. Okay, so that's the kind of thing which you give it when you talk of the voice recognition, and it's a kind of text dependent, independent, and hybrid which is there. So some bit of it as to how it works for identifying the voice print. So this is the model what we have. You have a user, it gives you the input speech, and you do the feature extraction from the speech. And based on that, you create a speaker model and an imposter model also, because in case you find that this is being spoofed, or there's a impersonation attack, or there's a replay attack, so it really does second action also, and based on that, it gives you a decision whether to accept or reject a particular human or the user. So this is where you have the waveforms, and on the x-axis you have the time, and on the y you have the frequency. So what is being used is that in the case of the dependent system, we try to use the hidden Markov model, right? And that is where we use the algorithm. And in the case of the text independent, we use the vector quantization model for usage. So how it's been done? When you have the two waveforms of the same word, you're trying to speak out, and what you see is the samples which are there are different in both the cases. If you look at it, this sample and this sample is different. Okay. Whereas when you have the frequency time plot, okay, and you take the sample of the same word, right, which are being spoken with the event in a given interval, and you see that both the samples are almost similar. Okay, this is how you apply the models of the hidden Markov and the vector quantization, like the Gaussian model, which is there. So when you do the speaker identification, what you're trying to do is you allow to perform a fast 1:1 speaker verification, 1:n speaker verification, and n:m speaker verification. So just see the kind of sampling what you're trying to do. In so much of sample, you're trying to take out who's the person who's your user, right? And you're trying to do all the accent, text, channel independence and all. So that is the way we actually work on the backend side of the voice biometrics, the deep neural networks, deep learning, and to generate highly representative mathematical model of human voice called the voice string, offering extremely high speaker recognition accuracy, right? And when it comes to your input formats, you know so what formats we looking for is, in the database we going for the dot wave or raw formats which are there, and the enrollment time for the text independent and the text dependent is around, it's speech length for enrollment is around 20 plus seconds, and speech length for identification is pretty less. That's only 7 plus seconds. Can be shorter after collaboration. And how you're storing the database, that's the output format which is there. You keep it in the XML and the JSON format, right? So this is how your, the outputs and the inputs which are there. So something again which I just want to touch upon, the algorithms which are being used for the text dependent. They are the hidden Markov model which has been used to provide a statistical representation of the sound produced by the individual. That's what has been used. And when it comes to the text independent application, we're trying to use the vector quantization, or we use the Gaussian mixture model, right, for a state mapping model closely related to HM, right? So this is the algorithm what we primarily use to model the speakers. And what we get is that whenever we are doing the voice biometric, it's done in a real time, right? And this is how, when a speaker starts talking, we try to analyze it using the engines, and we are able to achieve accuracy of almost 94%. And this is keeps on improving over a period of time. And what practically happens is that as you start speaking, the voice samples through the microphone that gets processed by the voice library, which is being created. And the library reads the audio, transforms and converts it, and then transmits the biometric to the DNN. Okay. And feature vector is formed thereafter, which takes into account such biometrics as timbre, annotation, tempo, pitch, and other characteristics that the neural network was trained to respond to. And then we are able to analyze and verify person in the real time, right? And this is already I've covered up this slide, so I'll not touch upon it. We are talking of all the call centers where we really can go in for the voice biometrics. Your financial services, BPOs, your bank is a huge potential for these financial services in times to come. Your healthcare system is another potential market. Your government services, the one which I told you, the pension and your other services, the Aadhaar card, your voter cards are the potential market for the voice biometric. Identity as a service itself is a huge market. And while we are in COVID, the bigger challenge today is to identify students who are studying from home, and we really don't know how to identify a student for examination, because we don't have any kind of data. We can't, because he cannot come to the college for giving his fingerprint. We don't have the facial recognition data. We don't have the iris. So how do we really identify? So the voice biometric database can be created and can be used to authenticate the student, for the examinations altogether, and also for the enrollment part. So this is a huge potential. When I was saying that the voice biometric has got a potential in times to come. So some of the advantages of the voice biometric: it's the low cost of implementation, your ease of use, which is there, and the user adoption is also very high. A small child can be made to do the voice biometric. An old person can be made to do the voice biometric, wherever he's sitting, and it can be authenticated remotely. You really don't need to be present physically to be authenticated, and you can enroll a person very easily, and you can authenticate very fast. So that's how we are able to use that authentication methodology. And some bit of the features which are there: it's a hassle-free authentication, and then you have the prevention of frauds and impersonation attacks. Like I told you that there are almost 100 parameters which are available of an individual's voice. So you can identify a person quite close to what he is. It's an easy deployment and low cost of maintenance. So anywhere you have to do it, just a software which you need to install in your server, and thereafter you can utilize it. And it leverages on the customer satisfaction. I will just show you how customer gets irritated when it comes to authentication. Even you would have also felt it when you're going to any bank, BPO or call centers, and it's got a faster ROI. So this is the biometric system which I was trying to recommend, a combination of voice and the facial, which is a multimodal combination which allows to achieve greater accuracy and security, for any user. And these are the kind of applications for the bank in particular, for the mobile app authentication, your call center authentication, your automate your password reset using the voice biometric. Your high risk credit card transactions can be done using the voice biometric. Your web payments can be done using the voice biometric, and employee to employee ID validations can be done using the the voice biometric. So there are lots of use cases in the banking sector itself, and these are the kind of banks which have already implemented. Barclays is the one who is being quite a front runner when we talk of the technology wise. They have been using it for quite some time, and they said the password will be no longer be needed as every human has a unique voice. Then is the ANZ, HSBC, your ICICI, and the Citibank. So they are the ones who are already implementing it, as a technology, right? Sorry. So how it happens when we are trying to talk the voice and the face biometric in any application, and how it happens is that even when you are accessing your web pages or the browser solution which is there is, you can access using your facial recognition and the voice to access your key database or your secured database. Problem today is what you are trying to save your database is just by the passwords. But if you have this kind of combination, wherever your files are stored, wherever your research work is stored, this combination would be a very interesting combination for you to safeguard your data. And once you authenticate yourself with your voice and your face, if you are a valid customer, go through that the voice and the facial engine, you get the access. Otherwise, you are being denied that kind of access. So what it actually gives it, this gives an accuracy of almost the false acceptance is under 1%, 0.1%, and false rejection is around 1%. So that's pretty kind of I'll say accurate kind of outputs which it gives you if you're using both these biometrics altogether. And the time taken is pretty less. It's around 2 to 3 seconds to complete, and very simple to enroll. You can use to get online. You have to just use your microphone or camera that provides the excellent facial images and the voice print. So that you can use it, and the multi biometric data collection would be pretty interesting use case for everyone to authenticate online, right? So when we talk of the call centers and the contact centers, here you require quite a accuracy which everybody is looking on for. And today, whenever you are going into any call center or BPO, if you give a call, the questions start from all those funny questions keep coming. What's your name, your date of birth, your credit card number, your personal details. Till the time you don't give them, the lady or the gentleman who's there will never start talking, right? But if you're using the voice biometric in the contact center, it gives you ease of the ease and speed of service, and also it's a very convenient way for the verification and gives a very high safety if you are using that kind of application. So what happens is you have any call center, what it does is it either has a text independent or text dependent verification system to enroll yourself, right? Once you have done that enrollment part, okay, thereafter it does the voice biometric engine runs at the back end whenever a caller calls up, or whenever you call up any caller, and you can verify any user in a real time, right? So the moment you start telling your name, number, here that voice biometric engine which starts working, it gives you the decision whether this person, the one who's calling up, is a valid user or not, and the agents which are there will validate the user. So it gives you a very high level of security. It gives you a versatility, and it can be integrated with the other solutions which are there. There's a lot of flexibility, and it is adaptable for both the things, for incoming calls, for the outgoing call, and the efficiency is very high as compared to a normal BPO caller, right? Or the person who's sitting in the call center. So with this kind of efficiency, we'll get better results, and nobody can get into the systems as a nefarious guy who's there. So one of the use case which we saw, where there were almost 5,000 seat BPO which was being used, and they were able to have the ROI, pretty high. And it what happens is basically when a traditional system, like I told you, to start from your hello to name to date of birth to ID to your secret word. When it comes to your voice biometric, once you start talking at the date of birth, there's a client request is being processed. So this time is generally is around 90 seconds, which is taken. And when you talk of the time taken with the voice biometric system, it gets reduced to just 30 seconds. And the customer satisfaction, level also goes up pretty high. And in this case, it went to almost 66%. And also they save the revenue, both of it. So whenever using any biometric system, the advantage is that one is the ROI in terms of the customer satisfaction. Second, in terms of the ROI is in terms of the money. So you save a lot of money from the people who are calling now, right? So this is the one I'll just cover up. So what it does is that when you're having free speech, so you have the 100 biometric characteristics of voice which are being identified, and these are all kind of 100% language independent. So any language which you speak doesn't make a difference. In case of Indian vernacular language, even if you're speaking, really not going to make a problem for us. And with this biometric characteristics, we are able to identify even with the free speech, whether that is he's a valid user or not, right? So this is the kind of the logic which really work. And the logic, what it does is that there are the DSP modules which are there. Whenever a caller is speaking, it separates the speech from the non-speech, and it also converts the raw waveform into the frequency domain representation. And it performs the windowing, scaling, filtering, and the data compression. And while this agent is working here, right, it really verifies with the other patterns which are available whether the person is valid or not. And he's able to kind of check that if the person is to be put in blacklist or whitelist. Okay, so that is what this agent does. To give you the example of the kind of just a second, I think the video is not working here. No problem, I'll just show you. Practically, this video was trying to show that when we are in the first instance that when we are trying to call the call center, it takes almost 1 hour, 1 minute and 30 seconds to verify a particular user. Whereas in case you have a voice agent which is working, right, it will be just 30 seconds to identify any user. I think. Yeah. Can you hear the voice? I think.
No, we can't hear the voice.
So, okay, I've already, I think, told you about this video, but so this is primarily about two schools of thought, where in first case you ask the password, your date of birth. Okay, you're really now working to think as to what details are to be given. Thereafter, your card number, please. Now you really bite your nails to give your card number to the call center. Your ID details, right? Again, you have to really remember those. You cannot, go do away with that. Your secret word, really have to remember what it is. and then she asks you what's the nature of the problem. So you wasted 1 minute and 30 seconds in this case. Whereas when it comes to the voice biometric, and the voice prints are unique, uh, this is how it really happens, is that the speaker has been identified. Earlier we had around 70 characters. Now our solution has more than 100 characters, characteristics altogether to identify a person. So the moment a person comes in, the date of birth and the agent is working in the back end, right? And his name, and here says in 30 seconds, it says thank you. And now you're telling me what's the question which you have. So this is a kind of thing where we are finding it's very easy. It's really kind of helping a lot of organizations to have a better ROI. So the safety and control is pretty high. The time factor, what I try to show is 1 minute and 30 seconds to just 30 seconds. The customer experience is very important, and we always talk about the CX. Okay, so the CX is the most important part of it. Now, some bit of I'll talk of the cyber attacks which people may be thinking of, because the cybersecurity is so very important for any biometric system, and the type of frauds which are happening in any contact center for that matter is the fraudster who pretend to be clients. A relative is calling for a client. A fraudster role, stole client IDs, a passport, and took a loan from client's name, and also the uncredited employees, calling for a legal entity. So there are n number. These are only four examples which I have to try to quote, but there are n number of examples of people who try to, call the contact centers every day, which we are seeing. And to just to refresh your memories of the spoofing attack, which we all talk of, and the spoofing attack is the attack whereby an imposter attempts to manipulate a biometric system by masquerading as another enrolled person, right? So which we think is very easy right now. We really don't have to struggle to get through the call center, guys. And the biggest challenge in the voice biometric is the ability of the bad actor to replicate a person's voice, right? So really, you can't replicate anybody's voice. If you're in there, you have to be in there, right? And uh, that's how the voice really works up. So some of the attacks which play up in the call contact center are the replay attacks, the cut and paste kind of audio which we try to do. You have the professional actors who try to mimic others, and that's what we've been seeing all through the life, all those mimicries which are being there by the professional actors. Then you have the nasalization tempering, that's the text to speech synthesis and synthetic voice which gets created, and the voice conversion. Sometimes we try to have a robo talking in lieu of us. So those are the kind of spoofing methods which are being used, but the algorithms which have been created especially to guard against all these fraudsters are quite phenomenal. So what we practically use is that they're able to refute the attempt of infiltration by utilizing distinct vocal qualities unique to every individual, such as accent, pronunciation, speech rate, tone, and pitch. So the 100 points, what we have been talking of, the 100 characteristics, that are being harnessed by the AI engine and the NLU, which is there in the engine, which has been implemented, which will able to authenticate the individual to a much higher degree of accuracy, making voice biometrics more reasonably viable fingerprint or the voice print for the future. So that is how we are, trying to sort all these kind of fraudster coming on to the voice library of ours. So whenever a fraudster practically calls, so the engine which I just told you, which is there, it's quite active, and whenever there's a caller who says that I'm the one who's been calling up, there's another engine which was the one which I was showing in the voice library. You also have a library which has been created of all the blacklisted guys, right? We keep on creating a list of all the blacklisted people in the fraud database, or which is online and offline mode. So we keep a list of that. We match with that particular database as this particular user is calling up, right? And if it is not, the database is not matching, so we actually block him, and also update the law enforcement agencies for that matter. So this is what is the percentage that we have put it for any blacklist agent which works up. It's on 34%. If it's not matching below 34%, so we say that he's a blacklisted guy, and thereafter it will stop the discussions beyond a particular point, and this is how we identify all the fraudsters in the network. So the future of voice and the face biometrics is pretty promising. What we are seeing, it's really going to strengthen the authentication system with the multimodal biometrics. It's more accurate and convenient identification based on the physical sign, and it is quite interesting when we are for giving the user experience and the customer experience. That's quite high with the voice biometric. So with this, I have come to the end. So I'll take on the questions, and as a parting remark, there are no pins to remember, no passwords to forget. So that is where the strength of the voice biometric is.
That's great. Thank you so much, sir. That was very interesting. There are a number of questions that have been asked in the chat window, which, if I summarize them all, kind of are looking at the competing requirements of such a system, right? One where you're dealing with people who may be the right person who's calling in but has a cold or is suffering from some illness and therefore, or stress, and therefore his voice is changed. At the same
so
time,
this is a very common question. I will just tell you. Yeah. So the engine which is there, is guarding against your common cold and cough.
Right.
Right. So when I told you the NLU, which is against all which has been used, and the deep neural network, this is taking care of all the eventualities of cough and cold.
Right. Okay. So you're kind of taking into account certain known kind of variations in the voice.
Yes. This is the most common. And second is the common question which I always get is if it is being a recorded voice. So that is against, like, we have the live detection which has been incorporated, and also the noise cancellations of like if I am talking and if my recorded voice is recorded and I'm playing at the same pitch, the background noises which are playing behind, they are being identified by the algorithm.
Right. Okay. Great. Thank you. Another question asked by Umar Farouk is, I guess at a feature level, are you using MEL frequency steps?
So these are some of the algorithms what are being used as part of the Markov model.
Right.
Right. So we're doing that.
Because
I have practically listed out only the algorithms which are the most common one, which everybody understands. So there are some of the algorithms which are quite proprietary to us, which we created and have been part of the complete biometric engine.
Great. Yeah. Thank you. Now, one of the things that people often talk about with deep learning is the fact that, you don't need to do any feature extraction because the neural network itself can do a lot of that for you. But from what you were talking about, it seemed like there was definitely a set of features that you're extracting to identify each of these different aspects.
Yes.
And incorporate.
Yes, we are doing that. We're doing that.
What was considered to be old hat, which was feature engineering in machine learning, you still see that as an important feature of what
so practically, it's a kind of the algorithm which we are trying to get to maximum accuracy for any user to reach. So though it's an old hat, but that technology has proven us when we are having, in the case of the text independent and the text dependent enrollment models, what we are trying to do. Because what happens is, like, if a person, I can't really tell a person to not be in a metro and try to enroll. He can be in a metro, or he can be in a station or an airport, where there'll be all different kind of noise levels which are going to be there. How do I need to really, identify to that accuracy?
Right, right. Yeah. I think that's great, because I mean, one of the things that, deep learning and more the marketing around deep learning is to say that, we can actually replace data scientists by neural networks and automation.
Right.
And that's why I want to bring up this fact that, a lot of this feature engineering you're talking about is the creation of that pipeline that goes from the raw data to the
Yes.
model.
So practically, the basics are still the same.
Yeah.
We incorporate all the DNN on top of it.
Right, right. Great.
And that is how we are, like, making the system more intelligent.
Sure.
Earlier, if like, when there was a question of a person is called a cough or a cold, and if I don't have those feature extraction, if I don't put that DNN part of it, what will happen is that my system will say reject that person, even if he's a valid user.
Right. True. Um, Another question is, what if the voice is modified by a sort of cyber attack, or how?
So it's a synthetic. That's a synthetic attack which I've been saying. So synthetic attacks are being taken care of. One, by the live detection, what we are doing, the noise cancellation which are there, and the geolocation.
Right, right. So the geolocation is a big one there in that.
Yeah.
But I mean, what if I was traveling, right? I mean, I live in Delhi primarily, but now I'm traveling. I'm in Chennai, and I make a call. Would that cause a problem to such a system?
No, it will not be. The geolocation is to come to know where the user is.
Right. So, I mean, how would you differentiate between a scenario where somebody has done a cyber attack of some kind, or is using AI?
So it's like this. One thing I have to tell you here. Here we talk of the deep fakes. The cyber attack in case of the deep fakes, and
yes,
we try to create a synthetic voice. That is the generator versus the discriminator, and try to reach to the most accuracy. But the frequency of that person, I may change the amplitude. I may modulate the way even Barack Obama will speak, or Mark Zuckerberg will speak.
Right.
But the frequency which is there of his, I will not be able to play that frequency roles in the synthetic voice. So that is where the deep neural network again is very important. The deep learning of any sample.
So, I mean, but can you see a scenario where you could have an attack on such a system where you're continuously trying to give them information and get back responses, where slowly you're tweaking the voice to perfect?
I will say there are chances. I will not negate it. I will not say that this is 100% secure. Yes, the security is higher, but as we grow, this technology is growing. We will see all the hackers also getting active to create the synthetic voice of different people to get onto it. So I will not negate it, but yes, definitely it may happen.
And that's a bonus, right? Because that keeps us in jobs, right?
Yes. So this is an evolving technology, and to tell you, because it, how the hackers are getting into all the deepfakes also. So that's what they're doing. The synthetic voice which has been created is almost the same. Very difficult at times. If you really don't have a biometric system which is not that accurate, you will land up with that kind of a problem.
Right.
And like we are today at a 94% accuracy and a rejection ratio of 0.1%. So we are trying to go up to 96% accuracy or 97% accuracy to say that this is the person. And if this person, the voice doesn't match, we have to reject him. So, and where we started, it was just 70% or 80%.
Yeah.
Right. So this is a very evolving systems what have been created.
Sure. And, I guess 94% is great, right? And of course, one of the things that we get all the time now is that everybody's trying to suggest that 94% is not enough. What do you think is enough for this to really be a production system? I mean, I know you've shown examples where banks are agreeing to use this, but
Yes. So I feel 95% and above
Hmm.
is going to be a good bet.
Okay. Okay. There are other questions on impersonation and emotion detection and all of those, but I guess you've already kind of addressed those. Do you have any concerns regarding GDPR? For example, with more devices able to capture audio, how do we ensure people's privacy or protect voice data from being shared with organizations like law enforcement, etc.?
So GDPR is always going to be a challenge with us because if the data is going to be stolen or the voice samples are taken away, then it will be a problem always. GDPR is because what is happening is you have to understand the implementation model is like it's got a server where we have the libraries which are there. They're the agents. There's a fraudster agent, okay, and we do have the kind of the library which keeps on running throughout to identify the user, okay.
Mm.
And the other thing is the samples, the voice samples which are being created for each and every one. So generally, a text-dependent one is a smaller file we create because we really it's really matching to the passphrase what we are giving. It is around 150 kilobytes. Okay, whereas the text independent is around 1 MB or it's around 800 kilobytes of the file which has been created.
Mm.
So those are the databases which are being generated for each and every user.
Mhm.
Okay, and that is how we are able to run through each file altogether to
Mm.
extract the data out of it.
Mm. Mm.
So it will be a concern. The GDPR will be a concern to us.
Sure. And you mentioned Siri and other similar Alexa and all of these devices that are there. Now, obviously, that's an opportunity for this technology to be used more widely, but also it's a threat in some ways, isn't it? Because it means that the private companies have a lot of voice data that is
Right.
potentially hackable, and you're getting access to a lot of such data, and that helps then the the deep fakes to be created. So how do we balance these two things?
So deepfakes will be a problem always, and like we are all aware, deepfakes are happening, and it's a very live problem which is available to us. So those kind of challenges will always take place with this kind of system.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay.
So that but definitely one thing which is there is that if the data is safe, if you're able to secure the data properly, uh, uh, chances of you losing the data will be very less.
Sure. Okay. Nikhil Bajaj is asking a question. I mean, in your example, you had talked about asking the name and the date of birth of the person to start off with. How important is that as part of the verification process? I mean, could you be asking random questions instead?
Yes. So there are two methods of asking. I showed you a text, independent kind of thing where a person is being told to speak. Okay.
Hmm.
The case in point that a call center person asks you a simple questions and you try to analyze him because you have the text independent data with you. Okay, and you have started taking out the samples. You're going to the agent really works well and talking it out. The
Hmm.
second is that a much more interesting would be a text dependent where you are being told, because here is the thing which is which somebody was also asking question, if there's a synthetic voice.
Yes.
So in the case of a synthetic voice,
Mhm.
like you have a recorded audio
Mhm.
of your name, number, everything which is there. Now I ask you a very typical question. How do you answer that?
Hmm.
Okay, so that verification process to break through would be much more difficult. So
Right.
the synthetic voice, when we say, it will be very interesting. Anybody can record and play back the same voice for the bank or someone. But if I ask you a very driven question, and those questions are all random,
Hmm.
okay, so then it becomes difficult for that synthetic voice to really act back,
Right. Right.
and that is the kind of edge voice biometric gives.
Mhm. Okay, great. Thank you. Another question is age related. So somebody, over 15 years
Yes.
as a customer.
Yes. So your modulations will change your frequency, which I was trying to show you.
Yes.
That won't change,
Right.
right?
Okay.
So that is the one which keeps on, staying with you throughout.
Okay. So no recalibration is required as such.
So definitely, see, it's like this. You may like to recalibrate after 5 years, 10 years, because
Right.
when your age may be around 60, your voice starts getting shaky.
Hmm.
Okay,
Hmm.
that's always the case. So, but the frequency levels are definitely the same. We may recalibrate a person after 5 years to 10 years.
Hmm.
That will be always a good part to do it.
Right. Right. Okay.
It's the same thing like your fingers. If you're beyond 65, all the marks of your finger really start fading out.
Yeah. 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 Okay. Yeah. No, fair point. Um, and then the final question here is we've already talked about multimodal biometrics. So, if the voice doesn't match, another kind of verification may be applied. Is that the way implementations are happening in industry, or is it really, are people looking at a complete switch from one to the other?
It See, it's like this. Like I told you, what the industry is looking at right now. The biometrics is really the big out from the industry. Suddenly, it
Hmm.
got faded away because of the coronavirus,
Mhm.
and people are trying to switch on to the other methods of biometric. And facial recognition has been catching up very quickly, which everybody is seeing it. And since it has to be a multi-factor authentication for anyone, and the second option, which is there, is a voice biometric. So
Mhm.
that is how the multimodal biometric will play a major role in times to come.
Great. Thank you. And just from a simple connectivity issue, right? Data. We're all seeing a spike in use of data. It's getting more unreliable. I presume you can handle all of that.
Yes, yes, it can. It can. Even if a person is just speaking from his, feature phone, you really don't have a smartphone if you're doing your voice biometric. Even if it's a feature phone, that kind of things can be handled.
Okay. Brilliant.
And if you've seen that, one of the slides where I was trying to say that the input is a waveform. So even if you're trying to talk from your GSM or your LTE phone or the normal phones which are there, the wave format that is around 4.8 kilobytes per second. If you have the kind of quantization, that will work pretty good.
Mhm. Okay. Great. Well, thank you so much, sir, for taking out more time than we had asked for answering all of these.
So,
I think this has been a very interesting talk, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And I think from the volume of questions I've seen coming in, I think a lot of the listeners have really enjoyed this as well. And thank you very much. And I hope that, like I said earlier at the start of this talk, that we will be able to coax you to come back and speak to us again sometime.
sure.
And
Sure enough.
talk on deep fakes that you're doing later today for
Yeah.
an organization, I think would be lovely for you to cover here at some point too. So we look forward to
Definitely.
interactions with you. And again, thank you, very much for this very engaging talk.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine, and really enjoyed with the questions. And it was very interesting, to get good questions. So that's more important at times. So you really love to reply to those questions as well,
Yes. Thank you, sir.
right? And definitely we'll plan for a deepfake, and it's wonderful to be with everyone. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, any queries, do ping me offline, online. I'm available. So it will be wonderful to interact with you, all of you, individually or through Surabjot. So it's fantastic.
Thanks.
Thanks.
We've actually recorded this session and will be making it available on our platform for students in the future also to listen to. And
All
so
right.
if there are any resources that you think a student that's learning about this subject that you can share,
Right.
more than happy to.
It's a really it's an area to research right now. Like I told you, everybody was doing facial recognition. They lost on this opportunity of voice biometrics. That's a huge area to work on.
Yeah, yeah. Great.
And like, there's a market which is fantastic. I think in times to come, it can be a big business line for all the researchers and the people who are working in this area.
Yeah, brilliant. And I guess a closing question: is this a Make in India product? I mean, has it been built up from scratch, or is this using?
So it's a partial Make in India. So I'm doing the most of the customization. The base engine is a Russian engine, which is there, and the customization part to reach out to the Indian industry is mine. So a lot of mindset has been put in by myself to make it work to the Indian environment.
Wonderful, wonderful. So thank you so much, sir. And like I said, we look forward to having you again as a speaker on our session in the near future. Thanks.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. Have a great day, guys. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Bye. Thanks.